The Basketball Hall of Fame 60 Days of Summer is your chance to see your favorite basketball stars live and in person. Check hoophall.com for a complete list of all these exciting appearances and plan your trip today.
And please give a warm welcome as we welcome Terry Cummings. 18 seasons in the NBA, 7 NBA teams, and it's a pleasure to speak with him today. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
Give you a seat here. Mic for you. Give you your own mic. How's that?
It's good. Hi, everybody.
We got a great crowd for you today.
Yeah.
Super crowd.
Energetic.
Now you're on your way. You just came in from Atlanta.
Yeah. Very humid.
Very humid. Well,
very humid and hot.
I think you brought some of it north with you too. Maybe we'll start, Terry. We'll just give you guys a brief overview of your career. Like we said, 18 seasons in the NBA, 7 different teams. Had the opportunity to play against players like Michael Jordan and Magic and Larry Bird and Dr. J. I mean, really, really a unique opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think probably the greatest thing for myself. I mean, I know that when you all were asked to stand, that many of you all are under the age of 18, but I will say this to you, that the period of time that I played from 1982 to 2000, I played against the best professional athletes in the world that ever played at one time. And I think a lot of times when I look back over my career and I think about what I accomplished, I actually played for 3 teams in the first 14 years. And so after that, you know, I started traveling more because I was being held in regard as a leader, so I was being traded for. I wound up going to Philadelphia, to Seattle, to New York, and then to Golden State. But I think, in a nutshell, I had more fun at the latter part of my career than I did before. I think before, you know, you're the man. You have to score 20-some points, 10 boards every game, you know, just to keep your team in contention. But being the role player at the end was the best. It was the most fun I had.
Interesting you mentioned that, because you think it would be the obvious. You go from an all-star averaging 20 points and averaging a double-double, and then you become that role player that's very valuable to some of these teams. But you think it would be opposite, where you might want the limelight a little bit more than just being a piece of the puzzle.
No, I think when you mature at something you do, you realize how much pressure and responsibility goes along with it. And when you're no longer required to do that, you still know you can, but the fact that they ask you to do less is a simple joy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Now, the 2 teams that you played the most time with, Milwaukee Bucks, and San Antonio Spurs, is there a team that you identify yourself most with? If someone said Terry Cummings, he played for blank.
I think most people do the blank with Milwaukee or San Antonio.
Okay.
Like I said, I do it with either or as well too, because I played, between the 2 of them, I played 12 years, 6 years each. So I don't know if it's one or the other.
Okay, that's okay, good answer. 6'9", 220.
Oh, in a generous way. I was 220 a long time ago.
Well, there you go, playing your playing weight.
My playing weight was, they listed me at 235, but I was actually at about 260, but I just never carried much body weight, body fat.
Right.
So I always weighed more than they thought I did.
Is there a team, if a lot of guys here, girls haven't seen you play, haven't seen video, whatnot, is there a player in the NBA today that you're comparable to? If someone said, hey, Terry Cummings, his game is very much like player X.
Well, before you had LeBron James, and before you had Charles Barkley's, and before you had Karl Malone's, Terry Cummings was the prototype small forward, big forward who could post up, shoot jump shots, handle the ball, run the floor like a small forward, post up like a big guy, shoot out on the wing. So you had LeBron. David West has some of that in his game. There's not a lot of guys that I see that play like I played, and not out of any arrogance. It's just the style and the way I saw the game. I played the game strength-wise, size-wise, like a 5. I thought the game like the 3 guy, because the 3 had to be able to run. He had to think on the run. And then the 4 was my primary position because I was an enforcer. And it was really unusual for someone like me to be the enforcer as well as being the guy that had to score, because most of them didn't have offensive ability like I did.
Do you watch much of the NBA today?
Yeah, I watch it more. I love the playoffs more.
Okay, yeah, like a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch the TV and say, hey, I could do that? I used to do that.
No, man, I don't fool myself.
No, once upon a time.
It looked like a lot of work to just get up to dunk the ball.
Yeah.
And I imagine, you know, sometimes I watch footage and I see myself doing things, and I wonder, you know, who is that guy? You know, who's that guy doing all of that? You know, but I haven't really played competitively in about 15 years.
Okay. Do you miss it?
Every once in a while I have a moment where I remember things. You know, it's almost like you have selective amnesia, and then you're sitting at home and you're thinking to yourself, I could do that. You know, I used to be able to really do that. You know, it's like a lot of the fathers that are here now having discussions with your sons or your grandchildren, and you're sitting down to them, oh, I used to do that. I used to be able to dunk. I used to be able to do that. And right in your dreams, right. You'll do that with your dads and everybody. Well, my sons do me like that, so.
Well, you got some video to prove it, I'm sure, right?
Well, yeah, I keep some just so I'll remember, so I won't forget.
Now, we mentioned you're 6'9", 260 maybe when you were playing, and that, I mean, in today's standards, I mean, we probably have some LeBron James fans here, no? All right, well, that's, I mean.
His weight, yeah.
I mean, you're comparable to his size now, and he's running the point, and I mean, it's a little bit different game now,
well,
2015.
Well, yeah, I think that if LeBron had played during the era we played with a lot of these guys behind us that I played against and with, he would have fit in with that generation, but there would have been more LeBrons for him to contend with.
Right,
I think one of the added things, I think every player that plays the game, no matter how long you play it, every year you play, you do something to make your game better than the year before. And if, you know, just from this place, looking at LeBron's game, if there was one thing that would make him even a higher echelon player in my mind, is if he would spend more time in the low post. Nobody can stick him there. Why play perimeter ball with people who want to play perimeter when you're the biggest, baddest cat in the world? Make them pay them, make them pay for playing against you. When
you matched up against some of these guys, did you ever think about, oh my gosh, I'm going against this guy, or he's a future Hall of Famer? And I mean, could you step outside of your competitive, you know, mindset and realize, you know, this is a guy he's going to be upstairs here at the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, well, fortunately for me, I grew up in Chicago. We had a huge Pro-Am league there. And by the time I was 16, I was playing against Dr. J, and I was playing against a lot of the professional guys. They were coming to our league. It was much like the Rutgers in New York, but it was huge in Chicago. So by the time I was 16, I already knew I could play pro ball. I just didn't know I was going to get that opportunity. But when you see a lot of these cats, you play against them. I remember like you know, the guy that I looked up the most to was Julius Erving.
Right.
So the first time I got on the court with him, I was in awe. You know, I was in awe. I'd heard so many stories. I'd seen so many things. And of all the players in the league, I just respected him. I respected his game more. And then when I got to play against him, I really got to appreciate really how good he was. And he wasn't as young as he was then. When I came into the league, I think at that time they were talking about trading him for me at one point in Philadelphia.
How about that?
Yeah.
Now, you had the opportunity, if my facts are correct, you played against him in his final NBA game.
Yeah, and that is like one of my memorabilia moments, is that because I had such respect for him, you know, it was a Game 7, and he had the last shot of the game. They could have won it for him as well. So, it was like one of those moments, you know, that's a TV moment, or film, a movie moment. So, but it was something I'll never forget.
Now, you mentioned those memorabilia moments. I mean, is there a short list? If someone said, can you in 2 bullet points, can you point out the highlights of your career, or the single best moment, or victory, or season, or can you boil it down that tight?
Well, that is at the top of the list.
Okay.
It really is. And then the other thing is, I remembered how many of us depend on our parents to give us money to do things from time to time. I remember when I got my first paycheck from the NBA, I called my mother and I told her, I said, Mom, they are paying me to play basketball. And that is like one of those memories that you know, like, I can't believe they're paying me to do. I would do this for free.
Yeah.
You know, because every day you go and play in the NBA, you play against the best players in the world. And, you know, we've grown up in Chicago. We would travel all over the city of Chicago. We'd travel all over Indiana, all over Wisconsin. We would not settle to be the best in Chicago. We would play wherever they would play us. We had a little barnstorming team. We'd get together in cars, on buses, cabs, or have road bikes sometimes, and go to those neighborhoods and play their best talent. And then wind up playing these guys in high school and in college, and some of them you see playing, you're playing against them in the pros.
So you're pretty well seasoned before you even got to that.
Yeah, because you get to play against the best, and you can never measure greatness by mediocrity. It has to be measured by greatness.
Now, you mentioned your mom. You have 12 siblings?
Yeah, count me, there's 7 boys and 6 girls.
And your mom raised you guys?
Well, Mom and Dad. Dad died.
Yeah.
My father passed when I was about 25, and Mom died when I was about 40.
A lot of basketball within your sibling circle?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have one brother played at Purdue and played over in Venezuela overseas, and the others were junior college and not Division I college players.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I read somewhere that you had at a young age, you had interest in hockey.
Yeah.
You wanted to play for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, well, back then, Dennis Hall, and you had Tony Exposito in the goal, and Keith Magnuson,
Sure.
all of those guys. We grew up with those, and we lived in the area because I grew up down the street from Cabrini Green in Chicago. So we would build our own nets out of 2x4 and barbed wire. And we would go to all the other little areas, the Hispanics and the whites and the blacks, and we would go into the ponds and the parks, and we would play against them. And that was my first ambition, was to really be a hockey player, but I didn't know that God had something different planned, because between my freshman and sophomore year in high school, I went from 5'8" one summer to 6'4" over a summer. So I grew out all the hockey gear.
8 inches, and you had no choice at that point. That's when basketball took the main path for you?
Yeah. I think I would have been an awesome goalie at 6'9". Though.
Yeah, I think so. Just lay down across the net there. High school in Chicago. You grew up in Chicago. High school in Chicago. You go to DePaul. In Chicago as well.
Play for Ray Meyer, the best of the best to me.
Maybe today's younger generation doesn't quite understand. Ray Meyer, he was there for 42 years, or 40 plus years coaching, the great run in particular, late 70s, early 80s that you were a part of. I don't know if this generation kind of understands what that school and program was like then.
Well, I think something that's kind of missing in college and pro sports now is I always believe that when you all leave home, for instance, and you all go to college, those of you who will be athletes, the responsibility of raising you is not just your mother and father anymore. It becomes and falls on the coaching staffs of those universities. And when I left the inner city of Chicago and went to DePaul, Coach Meyer left his front door open at all times. So whereas most of the guys would run out of practice and run past his door, I'd go sit down and get inundated with history and understand who the man was, and it really helped me because it allowed me to see him as a human being, not just as a coach. And you want coaches to see you as a human being, not just a talent as well. But I thought for me, Ray was just the consummate coach, father type, authoritarian, and disciplinarian when he had to be, But what he loved more than anything that excited me, he loved basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you take this experience, you take this success, you declare for the NBA draft after your junior season at DePaul. Number 2 pick in the entire draft, first round.
Yeah.
What do you think?
James Worthy. Well, that year you had James Worthy, myself, and Dominique Wilkins, and all 3 of us were being wined and dined by the Lakers. And it came down to the very last moment. The Lakers decided to go with James Worthy. The Clippers picked me. They were then in San Diego. And Dominique got drafted by Atlanta.
Now, again, if this generation doesn't understand, the Clippers have had, through their history, they were more known for their struggles and their success they've had in recent years. But
yeah.
So you go to a kind of a rebuilding program, if you will, but that doesn't.
Man, I don't know that that's even nice to
rebuilding,
say.
Rebuilding, yeah.
I had lost in college. I lost in 3 years. I lost maybe 4 or 5 games. And when I got with the Clippers, we lost 5 games in the first week.
I'm sure.
Man, I was depressed. I couldn't appreciate that at all.
You can't get used to that stuff.
No, I mean, we would play against the veteran teams. Seattle was really good then. They had Gus Williams, Freddie Brown, Jack Sigmund, those guys. Man, at halftime, they'd have us down 40 points sitting on the bench with towels on their heads and talking about what they're going to do when they leave, and that wasn't good enough for me. I went and asked to be traded because I knew that I did not come to the NBA to play and to be a loser. And, you put too much. You put the same time and effort in to playing when you lose than you do if you win. So why not just win?
Maybe the perils of being a high draft pick. Obviously, you go to some of the weaker teams. But you still go out and you earn NBA Rookie of the Year honors.
Yeah.
First season, you average 24 and 11.
Yeah.
Maybe something in that neighborhood. So you didn't let it impact your play at all.
No, I tell you, I was amazed because, like I said, we wound up losing in my rookie year. We lost 50-something games, and I don't know that you win Rookie of the Year when you lose that much,
right.
But and it's interesting because there's a paradigm shift when I get traded to Milwaukee. We win more games in the first year I'm with Milwaukee than in 2 entire years I played with the Clippers. So, things change quick.
Now, you had an opportunity with Milwaukee and a little bit later with San Antonio. I think twice you got to the conference finals, kind of knocked on the doorstep of getting to the finals and a chase for the championship. Was that, looking back now, is that something that is it a good memory to have gone that far, or is it a little emptiness knowing that you were kind of that close?
No, I think just having had the opportunity was good. I always believed if I ever got to the championship, I was going to win. Yeah. It took me 18 years to give up, but I kept trying. But I think at some point in my career, I realized that, the championship was really what you play for from the beginning of your season to the end. But if you don't make it, just make sure you play your year like, you're playing for that goal to win the championship. But if you come up short, just know that only one person can win it,
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys are just joining us, we're talking with Terry Cummings, 18-year veteran in the NBA, 7 different teams he played for, kind enough to join us in the 60 Days of Summer. You played 18 years. You had a knee injury in 1992 that kind of maybe knocked you off a little bit of the intended course, I suppose. Mm-hmm. It changed your career.
Yeah, I always enjoyed. I was not typical to most athletes. They wouldn't play outside pickup games and things. I always kept a clause in my contract that I could play anywhere I wanted to play. And it just so happens in that summer, a young guy, probably soaking wet, 135 pounds, fell into my knee. I tore my ACL and stretched the MCL, and it changed my whole career. But it also made me a better player. I feel like sometimes when you get injured, you focus more on all the little bitty things that you don't pay attention to when you're whole. And for me, I felt like those last 7 or 8 years were the best years of my career. I mean, I was a complete player. I knew I could score on anybody, anytime I wanted to. The only difference is that now it wasn't required as much. And then I had shifted so that coaches actually trusted me to defend the best offensive player when the game was on the line, because I had really, being a star player who now was on the bench, I understood better what needed to happen in the last 6 minutes of a game than most of the guys who were starting. And because I was on the bench watching it unfold, it made me a better role player. And then I tended to make the teams I played on, our second team tended to be a whole lot better than our first team.
Okay.
Because that was my mindset, is that if we're going to go out, we go out with all the guns and whistles and everything, because we knew what to do when we got out there. Well,
good for you for embracing it, because it could be a frustrating.
Yeah. But I just have always thought life is not complicated. You accept what you have to, and you make it better. It's like playing cards. Any card players? No card players? Well, card players, when you play certain games, whatever hand you get dealt, you can't change that until you can. So you take that hand and you make that hand the best hand you can. And I think that life is the same. You just make the best of what you have.
Now, individually, stat-wise anyways, I think when you retired in 2000, you were ranked 29th all-time in career points scored. Now you're even 15 years later, you're still in the top 50. I think you're 49th. Top 50 in games played. I mean, you look at a list of those guys, and that's a fantastic list to be part of.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think it's the funniest thing, is when you play on high levels or you do things on high levels, it's so easy to forget a lot, especially if you do it a lot. I was sitting at home and some friends came by and they were watching something that was on television, and I was sitting there watching it with them like a spectator, and the whole thing was that it was like a Terry Cummings highlight film. I was like, this guy could play. Who is this guy? But it's like, when you've done it, you never stop to think, that one day this is going to be something. You're just doing what you love, and then the guys that I played with and the guys I played against made playing in the league, the Barkleys, the Malones, the Julius Ervings, the Kareems, the Larry Birds, the Erving Magic Johnsons, they made that game what it was for me, and though they get all the press, they really couldn't have been who they were without players like myself, who they had to sharpen themselves on to get to where they were going.
Now, I did a little math with some of your career stats. I think you took 16,000 shots in your career. I think you were pretty close to 50% from the floor, which is phenomenal. If you could turn one of those misses into a made basket, is there a shot in your career you said, geez, if that thing had gone in, it might have changed the course of something, we've given us a lead, won a game, won a series? I mean, something stick with you even this many years later?
I can't think of anything more than I remember one year I was playing for Milwaukee, and we were playing against the Boston Celtics, and it was the Game 7. We would have gone to the conference final that year, and we were up 7 points with 1:27 to go. And in my mind, if I could have just got my hands on the ball, right? Because I didn't touch it for the last 1:27, and we wound up losing that game. And I think that's like one that really stood out in my mind, because that between Boston, Philly, Washington, Detroit, Chicago, those were for when I played in Milwaukee, those were the teams you have to beat,
right?
To get to that next level.
Now, on the flip side of that, how about a buzzer beater you might have hit, or a key rebound you got, or was there a moment there where you just made a play that you've never forgotten?
Man, that's like 18 years worth of information. Yeah. I don't know. I think probably for me, my rookie year. I remember playing in the Forum in San Diego, and we were playing against the Lakers. And it wasn't so much something I did. I think it was just something that happened. I had to stick Kareem.
Okay.
And back then the sky hook was everything. And he, some kind of way, he shot his sky hook, and I got caught looking at the sky hook, and at the same time, his elbow came down and crushed me on the head. Oh, no. So
I'm looking for a highlight here.
Yeah, well, that was a highlight. I mean, it was Kareem, but I think it's hard because it was so many things. I had a great career. I have no regrets over my career. I don't have to look back and say that because I didn't win a championship, I wasn't successful. Because for me, success is more than just the championship. If you can endure what you love for a long period of time and accomplish what you set out to do, and maybe not get it all done, but you still accomplish what you set out to do, then at the end of the day, you don't have to have regrets. You don't have to feel sorry about any of it, and your life is going to go on one way or another.
Now, before we get this you're putting life into perspective off the basketball court in particular. Just getting back to your rookie year real quick, you were featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
As what, 21, 22 years old?
Yeah, a whole lot of hair back then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people can say that? You know, I mean, the cover. I mean, yeah.
Well, you know, back then, shoot, I think at the time that was the first time I wound up being on Sports Illustrated. Maybe another couple times. I think once in college, and then a couple more times on a pro level. But that was for inner city kid coming from Chicago, and back then, all of us that became successful, our success was for the family, it was for the community, it was for everybody that ever had anything to do with you from the day you were born, because they all attached themselves to your success. So when that Sports Illustrated article came out, that was like it. You know, that was the Rookie of the Year, Sports Illustrated, it came out. And I still look at it and be like, wow, you know, because it's still amazing when people take account of what you've done and actually give you credit for it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Now, off the court, your second career, if you will, you're Pentecostal minister. You're involved with in the entertainment industry with music, and I think you've been in some movies. I mean, anything you want in particular you'd like to share with us about that?
I went to college at DePaul and majored in radio and television and broadcast, and my company this year is about 32 years old. And we do television and film, music, we songwrite, we do a lot of different things. I think there's a proverb that says that a man's gift makes room for him before great men. And for me, your gift is something that's God-given, and if you take care of it and you allow it to mature, there's nothing you can't do. And the things you were talking about, you know, I did a movie with Spike Lee, Love and Basketball.
Sure.
And in it, I play a bartender, but it was actually a longer scene. Larry Drew was actually in that movie too, and it didn't. The basketball scenes in it didn't make it, and then did another film, a B movie in San Antonio. But then all it did was it really enticed me to really drive my company toward that, because I love filmmaking and I love doing stuff that matters. You know, I don't want to, you know, just do something because you can. But I think the gift of sports allowed me to be able to do a lot of things. I mean, I've met 2 or 3 different presidents of the United States, their wives. You know, I've been to the White House and had private tours, and I mean, all of these things. You know, meeting, you know, big CEOs of major conglomerates, companies, whether in entertainment, sports, or whatever. All of that comes because of your gift. I mean, your gift makes room for you and gets you an opportunity, I mean, to expand and enlarge as a person.
Good. Now, we, as promised, we're going to give guys, girls in the audience, if you have a question for Terry, we have Steve from the Hall of Fame. He's in the white shirt here underneath this basket to your right. I think they're going to be stationed over in this corner. We're looking for about 5 or 6 people who might have a question for Terry, and we'll give you the opportunity to walk up here, and I'll hand you the microphone and you can ask a question. When you do come up, just give us your name and where you're from, and you can tell us if you have a favorite team or a favorite player, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask Terry your question. Terry, so many kids here, and obviously youth is such a major part of basketball, and you know, any particular advice to kids today about what basketball could mean to them, what it meant to you, or what would you want to share with them? What kind of message?
I always think in terms of focus. I always think that if you choose to do it, make sure it's something you want to do, that it's your heart. You will always be more productive in things that you decide you want to focus your heart on. And basketball is one of those things that even when you don't play it any longer, it's still, you'll be able to draw from it. It's a life experience. For instance, I think that how many of us play basketball on the team? You will be more prone to be a leader beyond basketball than people who probably don't, because you have to learn teamwork. And when you play for teams, leadership abilities come a lot more easier for us because we understand, we tend to learn what the capabilities of each individual on our team is, and then we are asked to play roles, which is something a lot of people don't know how to do, you know. But in team sports, we're taught to do that, and it helps you in your leadership role.
Now, you mentioned leaders, mentors in your life. You mentioned Ray Meyer, the coach at DePaul. I mean, what names come to mind when we talk about mentors for you?
Well, my mom and dad, you know, they were old school, so they helped mentor us in ways that a lot of the younger generation might not really get right now.
Okay, all right.
They really steered us in the right way through discipline, and because my mom didn't have a high school. My mom had a high school education, but Dad never moved beyond 8th grade.
Okay.
So he was literally a cotton picker. He was still working out in the field, so he had to do that to help the family. And so what they gave us was something books can't give you, and, you know, hard knock training and things like that. You know, just the foundation of bringing you to a point where it's interesting. In that family, I didn't know I could go to college.
Okay.
Kids today believe they have that right, but there was a time when a lot of us didn't even know we could go certain places or would be able to do certain things. And when I finally got to college, I embraced it so much because no one in the family had done it before on that level. So, you know, I look back at mom and dad, my grandparents, my high school coach, Horace Howard, and there were many people along the way, many men and women alike, you know, on the high school and college level that just helped migrate me toward that purpose.
And they obviously did a very good job. They did a very good job.
I'm happy for them, yeah.
All right, well, we got about a half dozen guys over here looking to ask a question of you guys. We'll get the first guy up. You can come over here. I'll hand you the microphone. So, by the way, Terry. All right, here you go.
Hi, my name is Justin Moore, and I'm from Wallingford, Connecticut. My question is, what was your luckiest number that you've ever had?
Man, well, 34.
34, uniform number 34.
Yeah, 34.
I'm going to build off of Justin's question. Justin, right? Yeah. How difficult was it for you to keep that number 34 as you changed teams?
It was difficult because as soon as I got to the Knicks, Charles Oakley had it, so I had to shift again. So I started looking at the numbers different. 3 and 4 added up to 7, and numerically 7 is a number of completion. So I knew that some part of my career was completed, and so I went to 3-5, which is 8, and 8 numerically is the number of new beginning. So I looked at the numbers that way, and I wore 35 the rest of my career after that.
Interesting. Justin, do you have a favorite number? 5. Okay, I thought it might be 34.
5
nice
is
job.
good.
Good question. All right, come on out. We have a pretty good representation from Wallingford today. Great to see.
Hi, I'm Melody.
Hi,
I'm
Melody.
also from Wallingford, Connecticut.
Is anybody here not from Wallingford? Okay. Hi to y'all too.
My question is, have you ever had any like superstitions like lucky socks or like Gino Auriemma's lucky tie he wears?
Mm-hmm. I would wear my shoes to death. I just felt like, you know, a lot of guys would change shoes every game. I would wear my shoes till I could no longer feel ankle support in them. So that was like one of my big things is I always wanted to know I could trust my shoes, that they, you know, I know that sounds crazy, but back then, you know, if we had a problem with the shoe, we knew how to fix our shoes and everything. You know, we used little, well, that's a whole nother story. You're looking at me like, right. Okay, but it's the shoes. It's the shoes.
Thank you. I'm guessing she has some superstitions too. All right, we got Larry Bird coming up. He looks bigger on TV.
I remember that number too.
Hi, I'm Kyle from Plainville, Massachusetts, and who's the best defensive player you've ever played against?
I think one of the toughest defensive players who defended me was Kevin McHale. because when we would play against Boston, they had 2 7-footers. Do you remember Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale? I mean, mind you, they're way before your time, but I'm calling on you to. Dad didn't tell you? Okay. Well, anyway, they were 2 7-footers, and they would put Parrish on me. I'd get past him, and Kevin McHale would be sitting back there waiting for me, and they were both 7 feet tall and long. But Kevin McHale was the toughest for me. And
Kyle, I'm going to guess you're a good defensive player yourself. Anybody who asks about defense can probably play defense. Nice job. Mm-hmm. All right, 2 more questions. And you know he's going to Google McHale and Parrish when he gets out of here.
Hi, I'm Ryan Carey. I'm from Wallingford, Connecticut.
Woo-woo.
Who's the greatest player you ever played with?
I played with a lot of great players. I actually came in the league. I broke in the league. I don't know if you remember Bill Walton. I played with Bill Walton in San Diego toward the end of his career. But this may not be an NBA moment, but when I grew up playing in the Pro-Am in Chicago, I played for a team that was sponsored by Playboy, believe it or not. They sponsored the team, but on that team, myself and Michael Jordan played each year. And that was the most fun because it was fun playing with someone that you knew if you didn't have it that night, they were going to carry you, and vice versa. So it ain't NBA, but that was one of my most memorable things on that side.
That works. Good answer. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
We have time for one final question.
Hello, guys. I'm Garrett Malampy, and I'm from Wallingford, Connecticut. My question is, have you ever posterized anybody?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I have. I don't take names if that's what you mean. I think when I was younger, my rookie year in the league, everything was a dunk. But then I realized in my sophomore year in the league that it's only 2 points. So I learned to do power moves, and that became part of who I was. But yeah, you want names and dates and stuff like that? Sure. But yeah, I've been posterized maybe once or twice, but I ain't seen it.
You were posterizing before it was posterizing.
Well, when we played, if you were that kind of guy that was dynamic enough to do that, you were going to do it under great duress because we were going to put you on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a different game then. We'd hit you in the chest, put you down, maybe help you up, maybe not.
There was usually an answer coming.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you very much for your question. Thank you to the Wallingford crew here.
Yeah.
Well represented. We'll wrap up with one final question for you, Terry Cummings. What emotions do you feel when you're here at the Hall of Fame? What does this place, what does the Hall of Fame mean to you here, being here?
I mean, I think it's like, if you, I'm a history buff, and I study history on a lot of levels. When I was in high school, my high school coach told me, he said, son, if you're going to ever be good at anything, he said, you have to become a student of it. And I actually went into the library at that point, and I went and read every book on basketball I could find, Peach Basket Days with Dr. Naismith, and even traveling further down into the Wrens, the Renaissance, which was a black barnstorming team that later turned into the Globetrotters. But finding out the history of the game and understanding it made me a better player. And when you come in here, that's what you see. I mean, you see history. You see all the history that makes basketball, not just the NBA, but basketball, what it really is.
And it's pretty cool. You've been a big part of it.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed it too.
Well, Terry Cummings, thank you for joining us on the 60 Days of Summer here at the Hall of Fame.
Thank you for having me.